And we are live. This is the Canada Hoops Daily Podcast. My name is Gilgeous-Alexander, and what a time to be alive, kids. We are recapping Canada's massive win over Australia, 93-83 in the Olympics. Canada takes a 2 wins so far in Group A standings. They take first place in Group A so far, owning Group A so far after 2 games. After what was being called the Group of Death, Canada is now 2-0 in said Group of Death. Again, after a 10-point victory over Australia, the best team in their group so far. Canada with the massive win is RJ Barrett leading the way for Canada with 24 points. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with 16, also 16 for Dillon Brooks as well. Just an amazing game for Team Canada, and we will break it all down here because that's what we do. My name is, as mentioned, Gilgeous-Alexander, and you can follow this pod, like and subscribe to the audio version of the podcast on Apple and on Spotify. Rate us, review us, follow us, all that fun stuff on Apple and Spotify. Or if you're video is more your fave. If that's what you like to do, we got you covered there as well. Just go to YouTube and search Gilgeous-Alexander. That's where you can find all of the Canada Hoops daily video programming, including, got to give a huge shout out to all of the people who were in the chat this morning for our live hangout as we all got together to watch Canada beat Australia on the live stream. It was a lot of fun. Lots of people in the chat as we had a great time breaking down this game as it went along and watching together. I was calling it the Breakfast Club, because the game started at 7:30 a.m., And if this was 7:30 p.m., we'd be more likely to be at a bar somewhere or at your friend's house together watching the game. But instead, 7:30 in the morning, we got you covered. You can still watch the game with your crew. Hopefully I'm a part of your crew. That's what I like to think anyways. But we can get together and watch the games, and that's what we did this morning, which was actually really fun too, because to start the game, we were trying to figure out where the game was. It was supposed to be on one channel, but it was on the other channel and all that fun stuff. But we're able to help each other out. We called those the live hangouts. Again, if you ever want to join in and watch those games with us, be a part of the show, join in the group chat, send in your comments and questions. It's a watch along, second screen viewing as we both listen to and enjoy the great sounds of Dan Schulman and Megan McPeak calling the game, but we're just a second screen experience, got you covered during commercial breaks, during halftime, all that fun stuff. And, also letting people know where to go when the game magically cuts off the regular feed. Story for another day. Either way, story for today. What a time to be alive. Canada 93-83 dub over Australia. And as a nation of basketball fans, we have been waiting for this for so long. 20 years since Canada was in the Olympics last. And RJ Barrett, here's some stats right off the bat. This from Caritha U on Twitter says, RJ Barrett's 24 points today are the most by a Canadian at the Olympics since Steve Nash had 26 against Yugoslavia in 2000. Barrett also became the first Canadian to record back-to-back 20-point games at the Olympics since Todd McCullough in 2000. What a time to be alive indeed. Again, Canada, if they beat Canada plays Spain, that's how they will hopefully win their group and move on. But we'll get to that later. Thank you for tuning into the Canada Hoops Daily Podcast. I'm going to go through the game, give you a quick breakdown of what I thought went down through the game, try to recap it for you. Hopefully you enjoy it. And if you like it, hey, like the video, rate us, review us, tell your friends, spread the word, because my biggest overall point in doing this is that we as a nation need to start getting behind these guys and make these dudes a way bigger deal than they are being made right now. Because I'm not sure if we fully appreciate exactly what is going on right now, because Canada has looked so good against two really good teams to start this tournament. And we should not be taking this for granted, because again, it's been 24 years since Canada was last in the Olympics. And now you have a team that was in the supposed group of death, but now have won their first two games. And the key is just keep winning. Don't worry about what else is going on the other side or in the other groups or whatever. Canada just continues to take care of business. And there's a lot of reasons why that happened, right? I mentioned RJ Barrett and the work that he put in this game. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 8 of 10 shooting for Shai, and that's how he got his 16 points. Just a solid game from Shai. But if you've been following me and following the content we've been doing, I have a man crush on Lou Dort, Dillon Brooks, and Dwight Powell for the dirty work that they do for Team Canada. I know RJ and Shai, they scored a buckets. They're going to get the headlines. I get that. I know that the addition of Jamal Murray is a massive addition for Canada, giving them depth that will help them in times of need. I get that. But Canada is off to a 2-0 start in the Olympics, in large part to the defensive end of the floor, which I will explain. But just want to get that out of the way early. Big shouts to Lou Dort, Dwight Powell, and Dillon Brooks for putting in work. We'll get more in depth there, but let's start at the beginning. Right? The starters for Team Canada. You had SGA, you had RJ, Lou Dort, Dillon Brooks, Dwight Powell starting for Team Canada. And the reason why this was a big matchup was because Australia, after Canada and the US, have the next most NBA players in the tournament, right? Canada has 10 NBA players on their roster. Australia has 9. And we talked about this after Canada's last game that they won against Greece. And if you listen to that pod, right, the biggest thing I talked about was the fact that the way that Dillon Brooks and Lou Dort were able to eliminate the Greek guards, that was going to be the game plan as well throughout the tournament, but so important against Australia. Australia starting some names that NBA fans will be familiar with. Josh Giddey, who used to be teammates with Lou Dort and Shai in Oklahoma City. And also you got Patty Mills, who, NBA journeyman. But the reason why Patty Mills is such an important part of this Australian team is because he's one of those guys who we've mentioned before. You can add Dillon Brooks to this category, or RJ as well, but you're talking about, a guy like Jose Alvarado for Puerto Rico, right? Or what's my guy, Evan Fournier on France. These guys who are solid NBA players, when you put them in international play, they go crazy. They get busy. They get buckets. So the key for Canada coming into this game was, how do you slow down Josh Giddey and Patty Mills? And I know that statement's going to sound crazy to the average NBA fan or someone that just is tuning in to the international style of play, but it's a reminder that this is a completely different game, right? This international game, again, the U.S. is going to play South Sudan tomorrow, and the last time the U.S. played South Sudan, the U.S. was 43.5-point favorites. They end up beating South Sudan by 1 point. I say that to emphasize the fact that the international game is just a different style of play. It's very much guard driven. There's a lot more spacing. And if you don't play defense, you're going to get cooked by these international guards, right? It's just a different style of play altogether. So that's the reason why this matchup against Giddey and Patty Mills was so big for Team Canada. But also, you got Dante Exum, you got Londale, who's also, or Jock Londale, who's also a big guy who plays in the NBA as well. So there's some solid players on Australia. And you could argue that Londale was, Australia's best player in their first game. You could make that argument, right? And so this was a big time matchup for Team Canada. To start the game, Canada started with Dillon Brooks on Josh Giddey, right? And you could tell if Canada's game plan is to try to disrupt what the guards are doing, you could tell Australia is trying to do the same thing. They had Dyson Daniels trying to guard SGA. And the game plan, I keep connecting these games, right? Because we saw what Canada did to Greece's guards, where they completely eliminated them from the game. Well, Dillon Brooks on Giddey early didn't work out well for Canada, right? Canada gets off to a super slow start because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander picks up his second foul with a minute 44 into the game. Again, 1 minute, 44 seconds into the game, Shai picks up his second foul on Josh Giddey. And it was just like, at that point, you're looking at it and you're thinking, if there's trouble ahead, that's going to be the reason for it. This team, what we saw last year in the World Cup was when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander went to the bench, Canada struggled. So now you're putting him in foul trouble with the second foul just under 2 minutes into the game. That did not seem like it was going to be a good sign for Team Canada. But the biggest thing, the biggest difference from this year's team to last year's team is the added depth. So you're able to now bring Jamal Murray off the bench. You're able to bring Andrew Nembhard off the bench. Two big-time names that this team did not have again last year when Shai went to the bench. So all the people waiting for, hey, Jamal Murray, we need Jamal Murray to cook. It's like, we don't need him to cook yet. Trust me, there will be games later on down the line where you'll definitely need Jamal Murray to cook. Right now, you just need to hold the fort while Shai is dealing with foul trouble. And listen, the shock of Shai going to the bench clearly, would take a second for Canada to regroup, as Giddey, Exum, and Patty Mills were able to get things cooking in that first quarter. Canada struggled a little bit, getting off to a slow start. And can you blame them for being without Shai, their main creator, their main guy in terms of bucket getting? Either way, 19 of Australia's first 28 points in that first quarter came from Exum, Josh Giddey, and Patty Mills. Australia led by 2 after the first quarter of this game. And the reminder, right, that, listen, no Shai and you're only down 2, that just shows the depth that Canada has. And you'd expect nothing less from Jamal Murray. You can say that he looks rusty. You can say that he doesn't look like the same player that we're used to seeing on the Denver Nuggets. And all of that might be true. But I think in this game, what we saw was Jamal Murray being a lot more confident. We saw Jamal Murray creating a lot more of the offense. He was very comfortable with the ball in his hands and leading the offense. Might not be something that translates to the stat sheet, but in terms of just the eye test, he looked a lot more confident. He looked really, really good. But the guy who looked the best in this game, possibly, is Canada's coach. Jordi Fernandez put on a coaching clinic in this game. We'll get to, the minutes by Kem Birch shortly. But to start the second quarter, right? Again, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has 2 quick fouls. Jordi Fernandez rolls the dice and decides to put Shai in to start the second quarter. A reminder, in international play, there's only 5 fouls before you foul out. So putting him back in where he could possibly get his 3rd foul early in the second quarter, I mean, you're rolling the dice and it's a huge, huge, huge risk. But Jordi Fernandez and Shai, obviously there's a lot of trust there. Obviously, Shai is smart enough to know how to play with the 2 fouls. And he checked into that game in the start of the second quarter, and it wasn't even a problem at all. There's maybe 1 or 2 plays in which Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was playing defense, and the person he was guarding, I think it was Exum, turns a corner on him, and you could tell Exum knew that Shai wasn't really going to contest, and Shai kind of let him go. And it was a smart play because you don't want to pick up your 3rd foul. Because again, NBA rules, 6 fouls. International rules, 5 fouls. But huge, huge, huge decision made by Jordi Fernandez to keep Shai in the game. And just a great play by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to not pick up his third foul and be able to be available for his team. And the reality is, after that first foul that Shai had, or first two fouls where he had to sub in, he didn't pick up another foul for the rest of the game. So rewarding his coach for the decision, rewarding his team for that decision, but also the big part of that was when Shai came back into this game, you could tell that he, and this is my assumption, right? This is my assumption. Obviously, I'm not in Shai's head, but I feel like he came back in that game and he just got busy. Like, he decided, okay, I kind of let the team down here by having to go to the bench early to start the game. I got to get some buckets here. And that's exactly what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander did in that second quarter. He started getting busy. He was hitting some tough mid-range floaters, some tough fadeaway jumpers that you just have no answer for. Like, there's no defense that can stop that. And Shai really took command of the offense in that second quarter while not picking up any fouls. And that first half ended up being just a crazy back and forth matchup. And the tough part for Canada was you had Shai playing, but Shai unable to play the level of defense that he would want. And what that led to was more dribble penetration from Australia's guards. And that dribble penetration meant Australia had a 30-16 advantage over Canada in terms of points in the paint. And that's just because they were able to get paint touches with their guards, led by, you guessed it, Josh Giddey, who had an incredible first half. Josh Giddey looked like, the guy that I hope the Chicago Bulls are probably dreaming that he looks like this every night. Because to start this game, Josh Giddey had 15 points in that first half. And, I thought as good of a job as Nembhard and Jamal Murray did to hold it down without Shai, Canada found themselves just down 4 points. And I think after you have that blow of losing your best player to foul trouble, and you're able to take that punch and you're only down 4 points heading into the half, you take that. And you look up Josh Giddey with 15 points. He was also diming. He was also grabbing rebounds. He was in total control of this game. Again, Australia leading this game 49-45 at the half. And the big thing for me there was, if you were on the live stream with us, okay, I talked about it at the half. This is why I love doing, this stuff and this platform, because we get to talk as a community, share things, share ideas, remind each other of certain things. And I talked about it at halftime as, if you pay attention to this team, and a major theme that we've seen, especially last year at the World Cup, was Canada would play in the first half. You have your defensive matchups, you have your rotations, all that fun stuff, right? But then now you have the data points from that first half. What matchups worked, what rotations worked, all those things. And then Jordi Fernandez has consistently done a great job of not only motivating his team at half, but making key adjustments that would lead to Canada just flipping the script and making a run in the second half. If you go back to our live hangout, I sat there and said, look for Canada to make the correct adjustments on defense, and for them to just make different little tweaks here and there, because that's what Jordy's done since he's been in charge of this team. And Canada would go on a serious run in that third quarter. I said that just from watching all these other games. Like, I'm not claiming to be super smart or like some like basketball insider or whatever, right? Not claiming for all that. But what I will say is that at the end of the day, the reason why that happened was we just watched this team and what they do. And you got to give credit where credit is due to the coaching staff for being able to put that together and just go on a run like that. And, we'll start with a couple of the moves that we've been talking about throughout the tournament, right? And that's a defense of Lou Dort and Dillon Brooks. Okay. What they've been able to do is just wreak havoc. And one of the key points I said, hey, Josh Giddey had 15 points at the half. somebody in that Canada locker room is going to take that personally and decide, all right, that's enough. That's enough of Josh Giddey. How do we flip this script? And that's exactly what happened. Lou Dort, remember, the game started out with Dillon Brooks on Josh Giddey. They flipped that. And now you had Lou Dort picking up Josh Giddey full court, and you had Dillon Brooks chasing around Patty Mills around all the screens. And what that did to disrupt everything is Patty Mills wants to come off these screens, run you through screens, and hit jumpers coming off the screen. Well, Dillon Brooks is taller than Patty Mills, so you're adding more size. So it makes it more difficult for Patty Mills to see over Dillon Brooks. That's for one. Two, Lou Dort is just not only being Josh Giddey's teammate, so you probably have a better idea of all his moves and everything he's going to try to do, but Lou Dort was just picking him up full court. And what we talked about at halftime was the fact that, hey, you can come out and have a great first half, but if Lou Dort puts you in the torture chamber for the whole game, eventually, by the time the third quarter rolls around, the fourth quarter rolls around, your legs are going to be tired. You're going to be gassed. You just don't have the energy, if you are Josh Giddey, to be able to stress your legs in terms of bringing the ball up against that type of defense every single time. And there were possessions where Lou Dort is making him work, and Lou Dort was taking offensive fouls. There's a play where, you had the bigs trying to set screens on Lou Dort, trying to get Giddey open. And, Patty Mills set a moving screen, a hard moving screen foul on Lou Dort. And Lou Dort doesn't get mad. You might see other players get mad because, Patty Mills dipped the shoulder in there. And some other guys might get mad. Lou Dort just got fired up because he's hyped up because he made a massive turnover by his defensive heart and hustle. Lou Dort completely flipped this game. There was a possession. Canada's making the run. We already know RJ Barrett doing work. RJ Barrett was putting up tons of points in this quarter, had 13 of his 20 points at the time, right? He had 20 points through 3, but 13 of those 20 came in the third quarter. He's getting his buckets. Lou Dort also getting buckets. 2 of those buckets Lou Dort had late in that third quarter. Josh Giddey subs back into the game as, Australia's trying to close out the quarter. Lou Dort checks in as well. Lou Dort is guarding Josh Giddey full court, and as he gets over half court, Dort just strips him, completely just rips the ball out of Giddey's hands, right? And as he rips the ball out of Giddey's hands, he rips it with 2 hands. I don't even know if I've seen that or how often I've seen that in professional basketball or with this level of player or something that's not like high school basketball, where a guy is dribbling the ball up the court and Lou Dort reaches out with 2 hands, grabs the ball away from Josh Giddey, dribbles it down the other end, and throws down a huge dunk. Just a massive play from Lou Dort that was just incredible. And if it wasn't for a couple of defensive breakdowns, right, by Canada at the end, Canada could have they were leading by 5, had a little bit of a defensive breakdown where Lou Dort again forced a bit of a turnover, but the loose ball ended up in one of the Aussies' hands, who knocks down a 3 right before the buzzer. And it ended up being a 2-point lead for Canada heading into the fourth. But remember, they were down 4 at the half. You're able to flip that. You outscore Australia 27-21 in the third quarter, and Canada has a lead heading into the fourth. And at that point, you just know Canada with that 2-point lead, the mentality that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is coming out with in that fourth. It's kill time. It's go time. It's winning time. And Shai, to start the fourth, hit a crazy step back over Josh Green where he's spinning. He's trying to get a little extra space. The space isn't really there, but somehow Shai gets it to go anyways. And it's a tough shot, but, big time players just hit that. Kenny Smith talks about it all the time. Sometimes it doesn't matter what kind of defense you play. When an offensive player is so skilled And there's very few players as offensively skilled in the world as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is. And he knocks down that shot. And it's incredible. But what makes Shai even a more special talent is that the very next play at the other end of the floor, Australia is swinging the ball. They think they get a wide open dunk at the rim as McVeigh pump fakes at the line. Credit to Canada's D for running him off the line as he's a knockdown three-point shooter. But he thinks he has an easy dunk as Shai's right there. But no, Shai comes out of nowhere and blocks his shot. And it's just such an incredible play that, again, led to another bucket at the other end. But it's just a testament to how special of a player Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is. And Team Canada, I mean, Shai has the ability to do it all for this team. And it's like this team is so good, they follow his lead. And the special part of this game, we mentioned what Jordi Fernandez did early on and rolling the dice and letting Shai cook while he had the 2 early fouls, and it paid off. We talked about the halftime adjustment in terms of switching Lou Dort onto Giddey and having Dillon Brooks on Patty Mills, and that worked as Patty Mills was pretty much a non-factor in this game. Patty Mills was flopping all over the place, trying to get foul calls that didn't work. Patty Mills was just completely out of sync. He finished this game with, I just had it here, 8 points. He was 2 of 10 from the field. That was Patty Mills in this game. And Patty Mills is a guy that Australia relies on to get busy and to get buckets. We also mentioned Josh Giddey, right? Well, Josh Giddey had 15 points in that first half. Josh Giddey had 4 in the second half. So again, coaching clinic by Jordi Fernandez. Rolling the dice with Shai's fouls, letting him play, cool. Switching up the defense at halftime, putting Lou Dort to guard Josh Giddey, slowed him down completely. And then another massive move by Jordi Fernandez that completely won the game for Canada as well was Khem Birch gave Canada massive minutes. And again, this is another thing where you look at a box score, and you're like, oh, Khem Birch had 6 points, 2 rebounds, cool, and a block. But the impact that was made by Khem Birch in this game was so huge because the adjustment was in the first half, right? Canada went with Trey Lyles. Canada went with Kelly Olynyk, but the size advantage was in favor of Australia. And there are a lot of people that were questioning, how did Khem Birch make this team? And I still don't really know how this would have worked out if Zach Edey was a member of this team and how that would have played out. I'm not really sure. But I will say when Khem Birch did make the team, it made sense. You're going to have games where you need the extra big, but also you need the extra size from Khem Birch. And what he provided in this game was exactly that. And sometimes it's not even plays that make the box score, right? Sometimes it's a box out on the other team's big. Sometimes it's just adjusting a shot, as we saw there are multiple times where the Aussie guards were driving to the cup and Khem Birch didn't get the block, but he was able to alter the shot. We saw Khem Birch get on the glass and buy Canada some extra possessions. All of those things were huge, and they were able to do that. But again, it's a testament to the culture that Jordi Fernandez and SGA have built with this team. Kelly Olynyk didn't play in the second half. Trey Lyles didn't play much. Khem Birch got those big guy minutes, and it paid off. He rewarded his coach with the trust that was given to him with solid play, and it worked, right? Just all the right strings being pulled by Jordi Fernandez happened to work in this game. Khem Birch, great minutes, solid big man play, and he was just able to provide a level of resistance for Lawndale, who had 16 and 12 in this game, but a lot of that damage came early on. In the second half, he had a couple buckets, but he struggled against Khem Birch, and we already know what Dwight Powell's going to do, right? Dwight Powell, he got his 9 rebounds in this game. He has his 2 steals, but he's not afraid of contact. There's a play where Landale turned and really gave him a solid elbow, and, didn't matter. Dwight Powell took it. He got an and one. Cool, whatever. But he's not going to back down. Either way, point remains. Jordy Fernandez, already mentioned, trusting Shai with the fouls. Already mentioned, switching up the defensive matchups for Dillon Brooks and Lou Dort. Already mentioned Kem Birch, putting him in the Kelly / Trey Lyles minutes in the second half. But then also, it's just little things with your rotation, right? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander goes to the bench. You could tell he was a little tired in that fourth quarter, right? He goes to the bench for maybe a couple minutes. It was a short rest. Canada plays well with Shai on the bench. Canada's up by 6, but they get a solid turnover, and you see Shai check back in. And watching it live, I was like, this is interesting. I can see what's happening here. Shai, he's bringing in Shai right now to close this game out. And it was one of the things, if, we always used to joke around about it, talking on Wrap It Up when we were watching the Kawhi games, right? Where that level of talent, like there's levels to star power, right? And part of the levels to star power is understanding the moment. What do you do in winning time? Closing time? How do you ice a game? And far too often we think that's just, at the end of the game, 2-point game, 20 seconds on the clock. No. There's moments throughout the game where you can extend a lead from 6 to 9 or from 10 to 12, right? And that changes so much. So SGA comes in, Canada up by 6, 5 minutes to go. And what happens? SGA is able to draw defenders. Canada ends up getting the ball to RJ, who knocks down a massive 3. And all of a sudden now, you're up 9. That all of a sudden just changes. You could tell that took the air out of Australia. They played such a good game to that point. But by the end of the game, not all minutes are created equally, right? So Josh Giddey plays 28 minutes. Shai plays 26. But Josh Giddey's minutes trying to get the ball up the floor against Lou Dort is not equal to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's minutes bringing the ball up the floor. Do you know what I mean? This is what we've been talking about. This is why Canada really has a chance to do damage in this tournament and medal, and has a chance to beat anybody in this tournament. It's because of their commitment to the defensive end. And with Lou Dort guarding you full court, you're not going to feel that in the first quarter. You might get off to a full start or a solid start in the first quarter, in the first half. But I guarantee you by the fourth quarter, your legs are going to be tired. And that's the key to Canada's play so far, right? Australia, they had 49 points in the first half. Again, Giddey had 15 points, right? Canada held Australia to just 34 points in the second half and held Giddey to 4 second half points. Defense. We're going to talk a lot about RJ. RJ had a really good game, 24 points, 8 of 14 shooting, 3 of 6 from 3. Great night from RJ. We're going to talk about Shai and the crazy shots that Shai knocked down. But I'm here, folks, to talk about the defense. And I know that's boring. I know that's basketball nerd. I know that's not exciting. But when you really watch these games, just as important as the offense is, defense is just as important. A great game there from Team Canada, and a great game from Jordy Fernandez, who did just an incredible job making all the right moves. As mentioned, RJ had 17 of his 24 points in the second half. Shai, when he's cooking at that high of a clip, 8 of 10 from the floor for 16 points. That's crazy. Dillon Brooks, another solid game from Dillon Brooks offensively, where he just has these moments where not only is he efficient, but he's just doing it within the flow of the game. It's very rare. It happens once or twice, but it's very rare where you see someone not named SGA really hold on to the ball for too long, or the ball sticks and doesn't really move around. RJ Barrett and Dillon Brooks get their buckets within the flow of the offense. Shai does such a good job of taking on the double team. He did it multiple times, right? where Australia thought, hey, maybe we should double team Shai. That's not a good idea, right? Because Shai has the handle. He's so calm and cool. You're not going to make him go at a pace that he doesn't want to go at. All he did, retreat dribble, accept the double team, his head's up. He doesn't pick up his dribble. He sees where the open guy is. And there's a one play where he finds RJ. RJ finds Dwight Powell, easy bucket. Or it might have been Kem Birch. But whoever the big was, RJ found them right under the rim, easy bucket. You saw the same thing, and that's where a lot of the threes, as Dillon Brooks was 2 for 3 from three-point land, RJ, 3 of 6 from three-point land. Lou Dort, 2 of 5 from three-point land. It's because those shots are wide open and they're able to knock them down. Lou Dort with a massive three-pointer in this game. He finished with 11 points in this game. And, it's almost an afterthought, despite the fact my guy's 4 of 7, knocks down massive threes. But it's almost an afterthought because of the incredible defense that Lou Dort played in this game. This Canadian team is so fun to watch. It's so incredible. And they're rooting for each other. They're cheering for each other. You get great bench play, and you're going to look at Jamal Murray and Andrew Nembhard off the bench. They play a lot of minutes, and the stats aren't going to show what's there, because you almost have to look at it not as the Jamal Murray or Andrew Nembhard that we know, right? You almost got to think of it as the role that they play on this team. And on this team, the key for Canada is that things don't fall apart when Shai goes to the bench. And that is so huge, because part of what happened to Australia in this game is the same thing that happened to Greece in the last game. Giannis goes to the bench. Where's offense coming from for Greece, right? This Australian game, Giddey, he goes to the bench. They're trying to go offense, defense. They'd have Daniels come in, or they'd have Dante Exum come in, who played pretty well, but your offense is going to take a hit, because the way that they got to play is dribble penetration, ball movement, swing. They got knockdown 3-point shooters all around. But Canada's defense was just blowing that up. And that really was the key to this game, as Canada comes up with a massive win. And I know that I'm emphasizing that, but I can't stress it enough. I just need people to understand just how big of a win this is for Canada to win by 10. And again, by the end of the game, those who are watching at the end, what happened at the very end of the game was Shai has the ball coming over half court. Canada's up by 7. And you could see Jamal Murray and Dillon Brooks waving to him, no, go, because point differential matters. So all of the teams that come in first place, you get reseeded in the next round, but the top teams, you're reseeded based off point differential. Same thing for the second place teams, and of course, the tiebreaker for the third place teams. So point differential is such a massive thing. For example, if Canada were to lose their next game to Spain, there'd be a 3-way tie in Group A, and the deciding factor would be, you guessed it, point differential. So you have this moment at the end of the game where it's a 7-point lead, and they're telling Shai, no, let's go. He drives, kicks it to Jamal Murray, finds Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks knocks down a 3 right at the end of the game to make it a 10-point lead. And that's massive, because you never know how much point differential will come into account until it happens. And then you go back and think, oh man, I missed that layup. Or, the difference between you playing the US, one round earlier could be that 3-point shot right there. Either way, massive game for Team Canada. Big win as they come out with the victory, 93-83. Again, RJ Barrett leading the way with 24 points, 17 points in the second half, where Canada just flipped the switch, able to take over. They were down by 4 points at the half, end up winning the game by 10. And this game flipped. I'm giving Jordi Fernandez the MVP. He pulled all the right strings in this game. He was able to manage his rotation, even though Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was in foul trouble to start the game, able to manage the minutes, able to make that work, able to make the defensive adjustments at halftime, switching Lou Dort and Dillon Brooks so that you put Lou Dort onto Josh Giddey. Giddey's first half 15 turned into 4 points in the second half as he was just a mess in the torture chamber. Patty Mills is mentioned. He struggled the whole game, had no answers for Dillon Brooks, and Canada just finds a way to win again. And there are people questioning about Kem Birch being on this team. Well, Kem Birch gave you the minutes today that justified his addition to this team. Just a great win for Canada as they can clinch first place in the group with the win over Spain on Thursday. Of course, if another game plays out later on today, there's a game that's about to start in a few minutes. And if someone loses, I don't have it in front of me, but Canada could clinch. There's a scenario in which Canada clinches moving on to the next round if something happens later today. I'm not sure what it is. I saw it earlier. But bottom line is, in this tournament where there's a team like the U.S. looming, you don't want to just clinch. You want to clinch and avoid the U.S. for as long as possible. That's the goal, right? Like let's keep it a buck. You don't want to play the U.S. in the semifinals, right? Of course, you want to be trying to play for gold. Of course, if you end up playing for bronze, whatever, you'll take that as well, as Canada was happy with the bronze medal at the World Cup. I'm not saying that. My point is, though, if you handle your own business, you avoid the U.S. The best way to do that, take care of business against Spain. So we'll be here for that game on Thursday morning, talking Spain versus Canada in a huge, huge dub as Team Canada comes away with the victory against Australia. A massive win. Australia, was one of the favorites in this tournament, along with Canada, along with the U.S., obviously, and France, and Canada took care of business. A solid game by Team Canada all around, a total team performance, a total great performance even provided by the coaching staff. Canada comes out on top. Just a massive, massive win for Canada. And I keep emphasizing that point because, Canada's never been this good. We know that this is the best team Canada's been able to send to an international tournament. We understand that. We get that. But that doesn't always mean success, right? It doesn't. These guys aren't nervous. These guys aren't shook. They came in focused. They came in ready. We talked about it last game. Little things like, they didn't go to the opening ceremonies because they wanted to lock in for their first game the next day against Giannis in Greece. And they were locked in. Shai was maybe a little too amped up for this game as he picked up the 2 quick fouls, but they were able to settle it all down. And now, winners of their first 2 games, Canada is in the driver's seat for Group A, what everyone was calling the group of death. But Canada's done their job so far, taking care of business, 2 big-time wins. And this is a big win against Australia. I'm telling you that. Either way, 2 other games going on today in which you have Germany and Brazil, and then you have Japan and France also playing today. So lots of basketball action going on. And again, also going on tomorrow, we'll be up doing the USA versus South Sudan. We'll do a live hangout for that game. So if you're interested in that, you want to watch along in terms of what's going on in that game, make sure you subscribe to the Sheldon Alexander YouTube page. That's how you can enjoy watching that game with us. Get in the chat, hear all my Joel Embiid jokes. It was funny. I was going to do the first US game, but I couldn't say it on the stream because I was going to one of my friend's surprise birthday parties. And shout out to my guy, Jerome, one of my Centennial College boys. We went to his birthday party on Sunday. So that's why I didn't do the USA live stream against Serbia or the live hangout. And it was so funny because, listen, I don't know what I'm going to clip out or what ends up getting clipped out from the show, but I didn't want to say on the live stream that I wasn't gonna do the game because I was going to a birthday party because it was a surprise party. So that's why there was no comments about that. But we'll be back to do the USA game tomorrow against South Sudan because, as I mentioned earlier, South Sudan gave Team USA a run in their last game. Pretty sure it was 101-100. Team USA was able to squeeze out a victory against South Sudan in a game in which they were 43.5-point favorites. So my guess is the U.S. is going to be ready for that game after a pretty solid start they had in the last game against Serbia and Nikola Jokic. So we'll be here to do that game. And then coming up on Wednesday morning, we got Thursday morning, we got Canada versus Australia at 7:30. And the men, Canada versus Spain, is Friday at 11:15. My bad. Got the times mixed up for the games. Spain, let's do that again. Spain versus Canada is Friday morning at 11:15 a.m. That is Canada versus Spain. First place on the line, Friday morning. That is when we'll be doing that watch along. The women play Thursday morning, 7:30 a.m., Canada versus Australia, as the Canadian women try to get back on track. If you missed what happened in Canada's first game on the women's side, we got you covered. Scroll up wherever you're at right now, and there's a quick recap. It's about 15 minutes, just about what went wrong, what Canada can do to kind of switch things up, and why the tournament is far from over for them. Just because they lost their first game, they still have a chance, a big chance, to continue to do damage in this tournament. The goal for Canada basketball as a whole was to medal on both sides, both men's and women's. And, although it didn't get off to the best start for the women, they have a chance to erase that Thursday morning against a tough team in Australia. But on the men's side, things have gone pretty well so far, as Canada has now won their first 2 games. Big shout out to anybody who was on our live stream this morning on our Breakfast Club live hangout. Hope to see y'all again. Hope y'all enjoyed this, the Canada Hoops Daily podcast, as we wrapped up Canada's win 93-83. I'm giving major props to Jordy Fernandez, the X factor in this game. Lou Dort, again, playing crazy, crazy defense. 2 games in a row where Dillon Brooks and Lou Dort have erased the other team's guards. That is the key for Canada going forward. They'll look to do the same against Spain, who is a solid team, not as good as some of the other Spanish teams we've seen in years past, but it's still the same system, still the same pedigree, still a game that you have to show up for if you're Team Canada, because you need to win that game. That game goes Friday morning, and that's how Canada can clinch first spot in their group and move on to the next round of play. Again, massive game for RJ Barrett, 24 points. Shai and Dillon Brooks each chipping in with 16. A massive win for Team Canada. Again, if you ever want to catch any video content from the Canada Hoops Daily brand, make sure you go to YouTube, like this video, and subscribe to Sheldon Alexander on YouTube. If audio is more your thing, put it up in the car while you're on your commute home, or maybe it's lunchtime. It's only 11:30 on the East Coast right now. You can listen to this on Apple and on Spotify. Just search Canada Hoops Daily. Rate us, review us, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. That's how you support this, the movement that is the Canada Hoops Daily podcast. What a time to be alive, kids. Canada is here, 2-0. All the worry, all the talk, people wondering about Jamal Murray. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? How's the team going to gel? How's the team going to fit? Oh no, they're in the group of death against Australia, against Giannis, against Greece. Canada's looked great so far. Massive, massive performance. Again, great stats here as RJ Barrett's 24 points, the most by a Canadian at the Olympics since Steve Nash had 26 against Yugoslavia in 2000. Also becomes the first Canadian to record back-to-back 20-point games at the Olympics since Todd McCullough in 2000. Just a massive performance from RJ. He continues to cook because everything is within the flow of the offense, whether he's getting it and going downhill on the fast break or waiting in the corner and ready to shoot the three-point shot. RJ Barrett is cooking at a very high level right now for Team Canada, and they're doing the job. Massive win, 93-83. I'm way too hype. I could probably just keep rambling for so much longer, but instead, I'm going to let y'all go. We did the live stream this morning, 7:30 a.m. Hope you enjoyed the Breakfast Club with us, our live hangout for Canada versus Australia, where we watched that game together as a family. Hope you enjoyed this, the recap podcast, and all of the other Canada Hoops daily content we got cooking for you. Thank you for tuning in, because I say this at the end of every show, but it's really the truth. And maybe not more true than any other moment other than, the Raptors run 2019. But the reality is, Canada is in the Olympics. Canada is putting work in the Olympics. What a time to be alive indeed. Because I really did used to pray for times like this, to rhyme like this. This is the Canada Hoops Daily Podcast. As always, unpolished and unapologetic. Until next time, see ya.